Has Coeur d'Alene elected a crazy man as mayor, or has he been framed? This week, the Ford Idaho Center hits a speed bump, or removes it, because, it wouldn't be an episode without it. We'll also look at how Idaho has the highest household debt in the nation, according to a recent report from the National Reserve. And 2 fishermen in eastern Idaho earlier this month sadly lost their lives doing what they loved. This is the Yocal Idaho Midweek Report, where we give you an overview of the news you need to know in Idaho for the last week. Also, have you ever wished that someone would just take a chainsaw to the Idaho budget like Elon has to the federal? If so, stick with us till the end, where we'll look at Idaho's DOGE's first recommendation for cuts here in Idaho. To get full coverage on these important stories and much more, go to our website. And to ensure you're the most informed Idahoan in the room, hit that subscribe button. Now, let's get straight into the episode. Dan Gookin, the man that X was loving to talk about this last week, won the Coeur d'Alene mayoral race last Tuesday with just 3,265 votes, only 34% in a 4-way race. Gookin beat incumbent Mayor Woody McEvers, businesswoman Debbie Loafman, and dentist John Pulsifer. Out of 33,984 registered voters in Coeur d'Alene precinct, only about 9,550 people casts ballots. That means that Gookin won with less than 10% of eligible voters participating. Shortly after the results came in, a video resurfaced showing Gookin making crude statements about Christians. In the clip from his YouTube channel, he called Christians, quote, the rudest and most disrespectful jerks, end quote, and used profanity in multiple other rants. As you can probably guess, Gookin later claimed the clips were taken out of context, saying more comments were directed at Facebook or specific individuals who mocked Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg's death. However, the full context still shows him using harsh language towards those he disagrees with politically. As you can probably guess from that type of clip and rhetoric, conservative leaders across the state responded strongly on social media after his election. Former Idaho Solicitor General Theo Wold and liberty activist Brandy posted videos of him, with Wold's post gaining over 700 engagements on X. The Coeur d'Alene County Republican Central Committee had previously sued Gookin for defamation, settling for $25,000 from his insurance company. Investigative journalist Casey Whalen reported that Gookin allegedly shared information about public record requests through a Telegram chat, raising some ethical questions. As for the conclusion on this, low voter turnout is probably the reason that allowed this outcome. When citizens don't engage in local elections, leaders who don't reflect the area's values can win. Idaho cities should have leaders who model respect and integrity in their conduct, both public and hopefully private. Time will reveal whether Gookin's leadership matches what Coeur d'Alene truly needs. And speaking of Kootenai County, Attorney General Raul Labrador cleared Kootenai County Sheriff Bob Norris of battery charges after he removed a disruptive attendee from a Republican Central Committee town hall back in February. Teresa Boringpole, if you may remember our past reporting on that, repeatedly heckled legislators during an event at a Coeur d'Alene high school, shouting accusations and talking over speakers despite multiple warnings. When she refused to stop, Sheriff Norris ordered her to leave. She ignored this command, so he had to remove her with the help from private security at the event. The AG's office found that Sheriff Norris acted within his duties and showed no bad faith or malice. Under Idaho law, peace officers can't face battery charges when they are acting in good faith while doing their job. The Republican Central Committee had paid to reserve the space and set clear rules requiring attendees to maintain decorum. Wherein Boringpole violated these rules and refused to leave, the sheriff had legal grounds to remove her, according to the Attorney General's release. Boringpole filed a lawsuit seeking $5 million in damages. However, criminal charges require proof beyond a reasonable doubt, which the AG determined wasn't met here. The case shows why elected officials committed to law and order matter a great deal. Hey, did you know about any of these stories that were going on in Idaho, or that there was even an election in November? If not, make sure to subscribe and follow us so you don't miss any of our future Idaho content, and so you can be more informed. And speaking about elections results, we'll have a lot of those in this episode. Eric Phillips defeated incumbent Jerome Wagner in Caldwell's mayoral race last week, capturing 57% of the vote. Phillips, a veteran and longtime community member, centered his campaign on one clear goal: restore trust between residents and the city government, which had been a little bit strained after the parking stuff and other things. Wagner responded graciously after his 27-point loss, asking the community to, quote, be kind to each other, end quote. Phillips now faces some significant challenges, however, for the path ahead. Caldwell is dealing with multiple lawsuits involving a current leader, the police chief Rex Ingram. Phillips promises he won't drag out these legal battles and wants to protect both leaders and employees going forward. Traffic enforcement also emerged as a key priority as well. Phillips wants more officers on streets to handle speeding and reckless driving. He also pledged that current staff will have 2 months to decide whether they'll stay as the city transitions. In conclusion, can Phillips deliver on his promises to repair trust? We'll watch as he takes office in January and begins to lead Caldwell through growth and some definite challenges, so stay subscribed for more on that. And closing out kind of the last bit of, in general, our election coverage. Last week, voters across our state weighed in on more than $159 million in local ballot measures. And the results reveal how communities view their tax dollars. Specifically with the bonds part, there were a lot of those that failed. Specifically, all 3 school bond measures failed to reach the required 2/3 majority. Gooding's $26.4 million bond for school renovations fell short, with 57% opposed. Fairmont County's $17 million Performing Arts Center proposal garnered only 51% support, but couldn't cross the finish line. Camas County voters as well overwhelmingly rejected their $1.7 million bond, with 85% in opposition. As for levies, they didn't fare quite as well, but a little bit better than the bonds. Education levies, we had about 19 to 27 supplemental levies that passed. Nampa voters approved their $16.8 million 2-year levy, with 52% support to maintain teachers and student programs. Boise overwhelmingly backed a $11 million parks levy, with 87.7% voting yes for open spaces and wildlife restoration. However, some contests came down to razor-thin margins. Valley's levy failed by just 4 votes, while Mountain Homes passed by 20 votes. It's definitely a reason to go out and vote. Not all measures succeeded, however. Piatt County's jail bond and Parma Fire District levy both failed. Gooding's ambulance district couldn't get the supermajority despite 52% support. In conclusion, voters' turnout climbed across Ada County to 29.6%, up from the 23.8% 4 years ago. These results remind us that local elections matter, and every single vote counts when communities decide how to steward their resources. If you've enjoyed the stories, do us a favor and hit the like and subscribe/follow button. It helps us stay connected with you and reach more folks who love Idaho just like yourself. And speaking of the community being involved, and very involved on this one, after weeks of scrutiny, the Twin Falls County prosecuting attorney has cleared the city of Nampa of serious wrongdoing in the Ford Idaho Center transfer to the College of Western Idaho. The investigation examined whether Nampa City Council violated Idaho's open meeting laws during executive sessions about the controversial deal. While the prosecutors found what he called a, quote, technical procedural mistake, end quote, he concluded it did not result in secret decisions. The city held extensive public hearings, which we've been able to report on, workshops, and meetings about the Ford Idaho Center throughout the process. Interestingly, during the controversy, staff discovered, however, that the property's paperwork from over 20 years ago was actually never properly filed when the Nampa Development Cooperation Organization originally transferred the horse park to the city. So I guess better late than never. The council voted to hold one more public hearing in December on the 1st out of caution, giving the town another chance to weigh in before the Idaho Center officially transfers to CWI. This process does show how transparency requirements serve the public good, even when, though, they take a massive amount of time to get things done. At least it means we've hopefully done it right. And speaking of not doing something right, Dave Ramsey would not be happy about this news. The Federal Reserve just released data showing we're tied with Hawaii for the highest debt-to-income ratio in the nation at 2.06. As for what that means, well, that means the average household here carries about $2 in debt for every $1 earned each year. Now, you may obviously be asking, how did we get here? Since 2020, thousands of new residents have flooded into our state, something that some people are not very happy about, driving home prices through the roof. Many families took on bigger mortgages than ever before just to afford a house. Added with student loans, car payments, and credit cards, and the debt piles up fast. As for what this means for us here in Idaho, when families spend more money paying off debt, they have less for savings, emergencies, and investment. It makes our households more vulnerable when economic trouble hits, which right now we'll see where the economy goes. Arizona, Colorado, Utah, and Maryland aren't far behind us as well, all sitting between $1.72 and $1.84. This should concern every resident who wants financial stability and freedom from the burdens of debt. Did you know that Idaho was leading the nation in household income debt? Or did you know that there was even an election or any of the other stories we've talked about? If not, please don't hesitate to share this episode with your friends and family. It helps keep you and others informed about what's happening in Idaho. And coming into our last two stories here, thank you for sticking with us. Many of us across western and northern Idaho may or may not have heard about a tragic event that unfolded on Henry's Lake earlier this month. Two experienced fishermen, Stephen Marks of Idaho Falls and James Morey of Coeur, drowned during what would have been a routine fishing trip. The men went out on November 1st, but when they didn't return home that evening, their families grew normally very concerned and called police. Search crews found Max's boat on shore with no footprints nearby. What followed was an intensive search involving multiple agencies, drones, helicopters, and search dogs. On Monday evening, the divers found both men side by side in about 30 feet of water. The water temperature was 37 degrees. Marks's wife believes neither man would have left the other. They were found together, just as they had lived their friendship. Marks, 64, worked for the Bonneville Power Administration and spent over 20 years in Boy Scouts. Morey, 55, was a teacher and devout outdoorsman who loved spending time with his family. Both leave behind wives and children who we should pray for as they move forward with life without them. And to kind of lift the mood a little bit, because this episode has been a little bit heavy, our state's DOGE task force delivered its first recommendations last week to take a chainsaw to the Idaho budget. Namely, lawmakers should scrutinize and cut funding for hundreds of chronically vacant positions. Representative Jeff Ellers and Todd Lakely told the Joint Finance Appropriation Committee that the state averages 381 vacant positions, costing about $57 million, with nearly $49 million coming from our general fund. They urge budget writers to evaluate these empty slots and eliminate the ones that agencies don't actually need. The task force also revealed 3 lists of agencies that they're reviewing for potential consolidation or elimination. More than 70 programs, departments, and commissions made the lists, including the Commission on Libraries, School for Deaf and Blind, and the Idaho Public Television. However, some lawmakers pushed back, questioning whether the task force has done enough homework. Senator Jim Woodward said the lists look more like, quote, what exists, end quote, rather than identifying actual problems. Ellers responded that consolidating government will take years, and not every agency on the list will face cuts. So for all you maybe wringing your hands, don't worry. For all those, this one cut means cool your jets. This effort comes as Idaho faces budget pressures after major tax cuts last session. Budget writers now must focus on trimming rather than adding to agencies' budgets. Thank you for listening to the entire report. It means a big deal. I sincerely hope you found it enjoyable and valuable. If you liked the Midweek report, make sure to check out our other content on our website. Also, if we missed any important points or provided incorrect information, please feel free to reach out to us via email or on Twitter by tweeting us at @LocalYocal_Idaho. With the small team we have, we're not able to cover everything, but we do our best to cover the most interesting and important stories. Thank you for your continued support and assistance. That's all for now. I wish you a fantastic rest of your week. Godspeed.